What's up, money growers? Jacob back here with another video talking to you guys today about something that a lot of you are probably familiar with in terms of this personality, this person in the finance world. He is arguably one of the most famous people in the world of finance and has been that way for decades. And that is Dave Ramsey, someone that a lot of you know and a lot of you are familiar with, myself included. And Dave's built himself quite a reputation, quite a business, quite a brand. And we're going to be talking about that today, though, and how no one's going to agree with everybody 100%, right? So there's people who disagree with Dave, and Dave's a very opinionated dude. It's actually one of the things I like about Dave is hearing how much conviction he has in a lot of his beliefs when it comes to money and finance, and it has benefited millions of people, no doubt about it, myself included. But there are some things with Dave Ramsey's philosophy that make it it's not, of course it's not perfect, right? We live in an imperfect world. But there are some things that I would say don't suit you well after a certain point when you are, if you're following Dave Ramsey's plan. So, basically you call it like a dark side, at least mentally, I would say, with some of these things and some of the challenges you face for, what happens afterwards. You pay off a whole bunch of debt and that kind of thing. So go ahead, hit the thumbs up button on this video. Please subscribe if you haven't done so yet. So we're talking about the dark side of Dave Ramsey's financial advice, even though it's a beautiful sunny day here in Las Vegas. Here's the first thing I want to talk about, okay? Because most people go to Dave Ramsey because he's known for paying off, being big on not having debt, paying off debt, not having loans of any kind except for, the mortgage on your home. But he's big, of course, on, credit card debt, student loan debt, obviously payday lenders, things like that, car loans, right? Any kind of debt, he's very much against that. A lot of stuff he talks about is from a biblical perspective, but even if you're not like a real religious or spiritual person, or if you're not Christian, then it's, a lot of the information still applies just fine. But a lot of people go to him for paying off debt and follow his advice for that. And that was a big reason why I found him was, just looking about paying off debt, because I've paid off over $100,000 of student loan debt in my life. And that is one pain that I know all too well. And I'm going to be doing other videos talking about that in the future, talking student loans and particularly my story. But when it comes to paying off debt, his big thing is, obviously, you have to have your budget, take the money you can and throw it at your debt. Any extra money you can make, any extra side income you can earn, a second job, a part-time job. There are times here, I had 2 jobs at one point here in Las Vegas. A lot of times I'd have a job and I was driving Uber and Lyft just to get extra money to pay off my debt and get out of that hole. So it sucks though, because that mindset that you have to have for that is because you're in a place of lack, right? You're in a place of constriction because you're in debt. So that's really the mentality that you wind up being in, a mindset of lack, of constriction, of penny pinching for years. That really can become your new normal. And that's what you just get used to. Now you got that way because you had all the debt, right? So you get used to this mentality though of shoving your life into your money, right? Whatever your life is, whatever you want to try to live and try to do, you have to shove all of that into the limited amount of money you have because you're paying off this debt. So that's very much the opposite of trying to expand your money to fit your life. So shoving your life into what money you have versus expanding your money to fit your life. Now, yes, getting a side hustle, yes, getting a second job can help expand your money. But, most people can only work 2 jobs at a time for so long, or 3 jobs, or a side house. Like, at some point, like you're human and that, you can only work so many hours before you burn out versus someone who's, building either a business or, maybe they like to put money into investing or whatever the case is, right? That's something where they have more control and they can keep expanding. But when you're in that situation of so much debt, that really does become your new normal. And you can see this with people who become millionaires following his advice, loving Dave's advice. They followed his advice to the T, his 7 baby steps. And you see some of these phone calls where people call in and they are millionaires, sometimes multimillionaires, and they talk about being scared to spend money. And they've got $1 million+, millions of dollars, some of these people, but they're scared about spending money. So it's like, okay, so beforehand, before you had the money, you were fearful of spending money when you were broke. Okay, now you're fearful of spending money as a millionaire. You're still fearful of spending money. So what kind of life is that to live? And that's part of the thing is when you have to cut like that to get out of your debt and your focus is just cutting, then, so that kind of can become your new norm. It can become really hard to get out of that, especially depending on how much debt you have, how long it takes you, and that kind of thing. But you can see these calls that come in where people are like, they've got the wealth, they've got the paid off house, they've got, they can take numerous trips if they want, right? They're quote unquote checked out. And sometimes they're just still scared to spend money because they're still in that old mentality of I was broke, I'm paying off debt. That's where they're stuck at. So that transition is the hard part. And Dave Ramsey's really known for getting people out of debt, and I think he's great at that. But then when it comes to other things like, he doesn't like debt in businesses either. Doesn't like obviously debt when it comes to if someone say they flip real estate or they're a house flip or something like that. Like he doesn't support any of that at all. But a person like that, they've got to think, okay, how can I get this loan that I can use on this property? And if I can get it done in this amount of time, it's going to cost me this much. I'm going to make this much, right? A person like that has to think about, okay, how can I take this situation, this house, and add value to it, and I can profit from that value? That's very different than someone who's thinking, of like, hey, I just have to cut. Or this person who flips a house can, say they net 20 grand afterwards. And that's 20 grand they got way quicker than the person who's trying to cut and drive Uber or drive Lyft and do that kind of thing to make money to get out of debt. Those are two different mentalities. So like even for me personally, paying off over $100,000 of student loan debt by itself, plus having paid off car before, having paid off medical bills before that I had. So to go from that mindset where you're always at a deficit, where you're always just so used to being at a deficit and just so used to being in the negative, to trying to think about growth and investing and where can I put my money in this, whether it's stock market, real estate, or maybe I should buy a business, maybe I should start a business, maybe I need to do more on my own business and that kind of thing. And there's no business owners in my family. So, it's another factor where you're on your own trying to do this, but you just become used to like, okay, here's the target, pay down this amount of money, and you get there. And that's, good that you're out of that debt, but it doesn't really transition over that well to if you want to build a business or if you want to start learning how to invest, right? Plus you've also lost years of time where you could have been doing that stuff anyway. So you just get so used to being in a financial hole and instead working from that negative situation that it's just hard to switch that mentality because you're just used to like not having money, you're used to being broke and thinking that you're always broke. Well, you can still have that mentality of when you're broke, like some of the people who call in, they've got over $1 million net worth, but mentally they still think they're broke. So those people became millionaires, but their mentality never changed. They saved their way. They did some, more conservative investing like Dave does. He doesn't do individual stocks or anything like that. He only buys real estate with cash. So, they can get to that point where they are millionaires, but it's going to take them generally longer than someone who is using leverage. Now, obviously, there's risk to that, right? Taking on debt. But, there's millions of people who do that. They use debt and they do become millionaires. So it's just so some people, they get to that point, but the mentality hasn't changed. So that's part of what I'm saying. A big part of this message is saying, okay, say you get to that $1 million net worth and you're calling into the Dave Ramsey show, you're a millionaire, right? But your mentality is still that of someone who's broke. So yeah, you reached a goal, you reached a numeric goal, but did you reach, an internal goal? And if, you're someone who's got a family, you have kids, your grandkids, you want to leave a legacy, you hit that goal, you hit that number, but did you pass on that mentality to your kids or your grandkids? Because if you got there, but your mentality is one of expanding and one of wealth, or is it one of just penny pinching to get to where you want to be? So that's really what I want to talk about when it comes to this, cutting costs versus the idea of growing your income. So that's just something that when it comes to the Dave Ramsey philosophy, a lot of people you get used to cutting costs and having to work like crazy and all that kind of stuff. And, there's a time where that can be very necessary, but it's that transition afterwards that is really hard. That can be quite a challenge. And then obviously Dave has built, he's more known for getting out of debt than he is for, investing advice or business advice or entrepreneurship. He does those things, but the big way people find him is getting out of debt. So tell me what you guys think about this down below. I'd really like to hear what you have to say because it is a mental transition, without a doubt, to go from one to the other. It really, really is. So that's part of what I think about the philosophy, part of some of my own experience with it. But I do want to hear yours because, Dave has helped millions and millions of people get out of debt, and he has helped a heck of a lot of people. But there's pros and cons to everything, and not every situation is going to be perfect, and this is definitely one of them. So tell me about it down below. I appreciate you watching. Hit that thumbs up button if you didn't do so yet, and I'll see you guys again soon.